Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Have you ever felt like an alien in a crowded room? Like you're sitting there in the middle of a bustling party and you feel entirely alone. Not because people aren't talking to you, but because nobody seems to be speaking your actual language. For most of your life, you've probably been told that you're just too sensitive, or you're overthinking things, or you're just, well, too much. But psychology tells a completely different story. What if none of that is actually a flaw? Today, we're decoding a very specific personality type, the INFJ, and we're going to discover why having this incredibly rare mind is both the heaviest burden and literally the most extraordinary gift you will ever carry.
So look at this number for a second, 1 to 2%. What's truly staggering about that statistic is it represents the estimated slice of the entire human population that carries this specific personality type, proving once and for all that your sense of being different, yeah, it's not in your head, it is a statistical reality. Now, you might be familiar with the Myers-Briggs system, right? It outlines 16 personality types. But the INFJ, which stands for Introverted, Intuitive, Feeling, and Judging, is the rarest of the whole bunch. But here's what people often get wrong. They think rare means superior. The psychologist Carl Jung, whose work inspired this entire framework, never actually described any type as better than another. He just described them as different orientations of the human psyche. So your rarity isn't about superiority, it's about a highly specific, totally unique internal architecture.
All right, moving into our first section, the architect of patterns and the science of intuition. To understand why this mind is so rare, we first need to look at Carl Jung's framework of cognitive functions and see how this personality processes reality entirely differently than the rest of the world. So it all starts with the way you gather information. We call this dominant function introverted intuition, or NI for short. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that this isn't just some lucky guess or a fleeting gut feeling. NI is an internal engine. It's constantly, quietly cross-referencing microsignals over time. It operates like a silent architect in your brain, gathering massive amounts of data completely below your conscious awareness and synthesizing it to produce a conclusion that feels like absolute certainty. You see the end long before others even notice the beginning. You hear an idea pitched at work and instantly you see exactly where it's going to fail 6 months down the line. You watch a friend make a decision and you feel this quiet dread because you already see the entire trajectory. And no, it's not pessimism, it is advanced pattern synthesis. And this brilliantly illustrates the deep isolation of our very first sign. You can clearly see a project failing or a relationship ending, but here's the catch. You often can't explain your subconscious reasoning to anyone else. You see the destination crystal clear, but you can't articulate the road it took to get there because the whole process happened completely beneath the surface. And man, that leaves you feeling like a modern-day Cassandra, that mythological figure cursed to see the future but never ever be believed. You see the collapse, the betrayal, the failure before it materializes, and you're just forced to watch it unfold in complete silence because the world rewards people who act on what is currently visible while you are built for what is inevitable. Which brings us to the second sign. And this one is rooted in a fundamental psychological need for cognitive depth. Look, most people use conversation like a hallway, right? Just a functional space to get from point A to point B. How's the weather? Did you catch the game? But for you, small talk is a suffocating performance. It's an awkward elevator ride that feels like it literally lasts an eternity. Surface-level chatter physically drains your battery. But exploring the neuroscience of grief, or the architecture of loneliness, or the philosophy of meaning, now that feels like breathing vital oxygen. Research actually shows that people with high openness to experience are psychologically starved without complex topics. You aren't antisocial at all. Actually, you're just depth-starved in a very shallow world. Let's shift gears to the next section, the weight of empathy, carrying the world. We're going to look at the emotional side of this architecture and how this perceptive mind combines with a heart that just cannot stop absorbing the atmosphere around it. This introduces your auxiliary function, known as Extroverted Feeling, or FE. And honestly, this third sign is often a major source of silent suffering, because your empathy, it doesn't ask for permission, and it certainly doesn't knock before entering. Mirror neurons are firing so intensely in your brain that you actually register the tension between two people or the deep sadness hidden behind a coworker's joke before a single word is even spoken in the room. And just consider the stark contrast between these two types of experiences. Ordinary empathy is supportive, right? It says, hey, I understand your pain. But your extroverted feeling, it says, I am carrying your pain right now as if it were my own, and I have absolutely no idea how to put it down. While people absolutely love being around you because you make them feel deeply understood in a way most humans never get to experience, the cost for you is staggering because you inadvertently become the emotional regulator for everyone else's crisis.
Now, if you don't build solid boundaries around this superhuman capacity, it rapidly turns into a superhuman wound. You get so skilled at reading and managing everyone else's feelings that your own feelings completely vanish from your radar. It's like you're a nurse carefully tending to every single patient in a massive hospital ward, but you never once stop to check your own pulse. By the time you realize you're overwhelmed, you've already been running on empty for weeks. You end up drowning quietly while simultaneously calming the storms of everyone around you.
Moving on to our next section, the craving for truth, meaning, and the inner world. Let's transition into the existential drives of this personality, exploring your incredibly vivid internal landscape and your absolute refusal to accept a superficial life.
Sign number 4 is the existence of an entire second life inside your head. It is a deeply detailed sanctuary that no one else is ever going to see. While most people are oriented outward toward the immediate, tangible world around them, your mind is oriented inward and forward. Think of it as a massive cathedral of thought. Inside it, you rehearse conversations that might never actually happen. You revisit old memories just to rewrite them. You construct vivid, sprawling futures that honestly feel far more real than the present moment you're currently sitting in.
But here's the catch with this inner world trap. While this internal landscape is your greatest creative asset, it can easily become a dangerous double-edged sword. When the external world gets too loud, too shallow, or just too painful, you start using this inner cathedral as an escape hatch. And sometimes, you stay in there way too long. You start preferring your safely constructed reality over the unpredictable, chaotic external world. Slowly, that beautiful sanctuary turns into an isolating prison, and the real world just starts to feel like a foreign country you only visit occasionally.
And that perfectly captures our 5th sign, echoing the brilliant words of psychologist Viktor Frankl. For a lot of other personality types, meaning might just be something nice to have, They can compartmentalize a boring job as long as the paycheck is good. But not you. For you, meaning isn't optional. It is literal oxygen. Frankl observed that people who lose their sense of meaning don't just become unhappy, they become hollow. For you, working a meaningless job or living a day without purpose doesn't just feel a bit boring. It creates a suffocating, actual physical pain. It's exactly why you might up and quit a job that looked absolutely perfect on paper. You aren't being reckless. You are just starving for significance.
Watch how this naturally builds into sign 6, which is, without a doubt, the most alienating of all. You possess a psychological X-ray. We live in a society that basically requires polite lies and masks, right? The coworker pretending to be happy, the friend hiding their breakdown. Most people are perfectly content to just sit in the audience and enjoy this shared performance. But you're constantly backstage. You see the props, you see the nervous sweat, you see the prompter's hand, you hear the silence between the words, and you pick up on the hidden agendas behind the smiles. And because calling out those truths would instantly make you the enemy, you usually just choose silence. You smile, you nod, and that leaves you in the incredibly lonely position of understanding absolutely everyone, but being understood by practically no one.
All right, we've reached the climax of our explainer, the core emotional wound, the 7th sign. If everything we've talked about so far has resonated with you, take a deep breath and pay very close attention here. Because all the previous signs, they all trace back to this single foundational experience. I want you to ask yourself, what is the ultimate core wound? Just take a second and think about your life up to this exact point. Think about the heavy accumulation of being told you're too sensitive, that you daydream way too much, that you overthink everything, and that you're just too intense. Think about all those times you nodded, adapted, and literally shrank yourself down just to fit in. Knowing deep down that everyone was wrong about you, but you just didn't have the words to explain who you actually were. The 7th sign is exactly this. It's the deep wound of being perpetually unseen. It creates this peculiar, lifelong wait for a single moment when someone finally looks at you and truly sees the real, cathedral-sized thinker living beneath that adapted mask. You aren't waiting for fame or money or generic success. You are simply waiting for someone to see the real you, the person who carries the massive weight of other people's pain without ever complaining, and who lies awake at 3 a.m. constructing beautiful, sprawling futures. And what's absolutely crucial to understand is that this waiting, it is not passive. It's highly, highly active. It completely shapes how you navigate all of your relationships.
It's the exact reason you guard your inner world so fiercely, because you've learned the hard way that most people simply cannot hold what you would show them. So you test people before granting them trust, just to make sure they won't run away from your depth. You push forward, constantly seeking one true, genuine connection, rather than settling for 100 shallow reflections of yourself.
So what does this all mean? The absolute most vital takeaway from this explainer is that you live in the constant tension between two truths: extraordinary perception on one side and unseen isolation on the other. But remember this: your rarity is a signal, it is not a life sentence. It tells you that you were never designed to fit perfectly into the world exactly as it is. You were designed to see what it could become. Your intense intuition, your incredibly heavy empathy, and your deep, deep hunger for meaning, they are not defects. They are the raw materials of someone built to hold space for truths that the rest of the world is just too afraid to face.
So, I'm going to leave you with a final thought to reflect on today. How will you set boundaries to protect your energy and carry your light moving forward? Because you don't need to become less of who you are to survive in this world. You don't need to turn off your amazing awareness, but you do need to learn to carry it wisely, with strong, impenetrable boundaries. You have to learn to see deeply without absorbing completely. Carry your awareness like a candle, bright enough to illuminate the entire room, but gentle enough not to burn the hand that holds it.